Hey guys, I'm Eric.
And I'm Grace. We're the Wandering Ravens.
We are a couple of Americans living inside the belly of Britain's oldest enemy. And the other night, we were lying in bed discussing British culture, as we do, when Grace asked,
"Who do you think was the greatest Brit of all time?"
We got into a little debate about it. It's definitely Mr. Blobby.
Basil Fawlty!
It's Mr. Blobby.
Basil Fawlty!
Mr. Blobby! And after a full and frank discussion, we decided to turn to the internet. That was when we discovered, and you may not know this, but back in 2002, there was a survey done in the UK about this very topic.
Over 447,000 Brits voted, and so today, for the first time anywhere, we're going to be sharing the results of this survey with you.
So buckle up, kids, and grab your tea. Here is the list of the top 10 greatest Brits of all time, starting with number 10.
Oliver Cromwell.
Not going to lie, I was a little bit surprised to see Oliver Cromwell's name on this list of greatest Brits because, you know, he did end up with his head on a spike, and in destroying the monarchy, he eventually became the thing he swore to destroy. But enough Brits admire Cromwell that he did make 10th place. In a way, I guess Oliver Cromwell is the British version of George Washington. Led a revolution against a monarchy, killed the King of England. You know, they had a lot in common. Question for you, what lasting effects do you think Oliver Cromwell had on British culture, and do you believe he deserves to be on this list of greatest Brits of all time? Number 9, Horatio Nelson.
This one makes sense because this admiral won some crazy battles for Britain and even lost his hand and an eye in combat.
Nelson was a pretty badass dude.
He was killed in the Battle of Trafalgar, but the Brits, not wanting to lose their hero, had him embalmed and stuck atop Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square.
Wait, what?
Don't question it. Number 8, Elizabeth I. Just kidding. We know it's Elizabeth I.
Another notable name on this list, Elizabeth I was the daughter of fan favorite Anne Boleyn, became queen at age 25, helped establish the Church of England, executed Mary, Queen of Scots, remained famously single, defeated the Spanish, and was ironically succeeded by the son of Mary, Queen of Scots. I think there's a lot of irony in British history. Number 7, John Lennon.
Surprisingly, or maybe not, this list includes a Beatle. No, not that kind. We're talking about John Lennon, of course.
Personally, we don't really know that much about the life of John Lennon, except that he's from Liverpool?
And he wrote the song Imagine, which I detest.
If you know more about John Lennon than we do drop your fun facts down below to educate us.
Number 6, Isaac Newton.
Thank God for Isaac Newton. Before he discovered gravity, you couldn't go outside without tying yourself down to the nearest tree. Kids and pets kept floating off all the time. It was a dreadful mess back then. But then Isaac Newton came along, invented gravity, and I think for that achievement, he does deserve a place on this list. Number 5, William Shakespeare.
Was he not American? I'm just kidding. Shakespeare wrote some of the greatest works in the English language, invented over 1,000 new words, and you may not know this, but just 400 years after his death, a couple of Yanks called Eric and Grace had coffee right outside his house.
No, what?
Crazy, I know. Number 4, Charles Darwin.
Charles Darwin was born in Shrewsbury, Shropshire, England, which is a lovely place, despite being a hell of a nut to say.
How many times can you say Shrewsbury, Shropshire fast?
Shrewsbury, Shropshire, Shrewsbury, Shropshire. 2, not even 2.
I didn't even get one, I got like half.
Darwin is famous for his love of beetles. You know, now that I think about it, he would be a huge fan of John Lennon. His contributions to the theory of evolution, and his many years spent with a certain beagle. Ooh, so sorry to interrupt, but if you're a fan of Wandering Ravens and you're disappointed that we only put out fresh videos 3 times a week, then you are going to love what we have to say.
Over on our Patreon, we fill in the gaps by releasing videos 3 times a week where we talk about British culture, try Jaffa cakes for the first time, answer your questions over cocktail Q&A, and give you a glimpse into our daily life in whatever country we're inhabiting.
So if exclusive content from the Wandering Ravens sweetens your cup of tea, make sure you go and join our Patreon community, link in the description.
Back to your program.
Number 3, Princess Diana.
Now, considering Princess Diana's popularity not only in the UK but all over the world, it's kind of no surprise that she makes this list. But a question for you guys, in terms of accomplishments and how she affected British culture, do you think that Princess Diana deserves a place on this list? I'd love to hear more about her achievements and what she did, because I know she did some humanitarian stuff, but I don't really know very much about it. Number 2, Isambard Kingdom Brunel.
We hadn't heard of Brunel before reading this list, but the first thing that stood out to me about him was that his middle name really does sound like the sort of name that a pair of millennial parents would give their kids nowadays. And not even as a middle name, but as a first name. You know, you got Kingdom, his brother's name is Legend, his sister's name is Heavenly, followed up by his cousin Fire.
Or Arrow. My name's Stormy, spelled with an
Stallion.
I-E.
Just a quick aside, my favorite millennial name of all time is Akirama. Here it is, if you understand this.
Some clever Brit is gonna get this reference.
As a clue, only a very patriotic American would ever name their child Akirama. But back to Brunel, apparently, based on the research that we did for this video, he was a famous wow, I'm still tripping up over Shrewsbury and Shropshire here. He was a famous English engineer who helped kick off the Industrial Revolution. Notable achievements include building the first tunnel under the Thames River and creating a giant ship, the biggest ship in the world at that time, the propeller-driven, aptly named SS Great Britain.
And number 1 is no surprise probably to any Brits, it is Winston Churchill.
We all know the story. Winston Churchill went off to war as a young man, escaped prison camp, returned to war in World War I, endured a spate of public shame, eventually came back into the limelight during World War II, was kicked out again, and then brought back again. So he had kind of this ping pong effect.
Yeah.
Him and the British public. But ever since his time as Prime Minister during World War II, he has been very widely praised as one of the greatest Brits of all time. So, like Grace said, no surprise that he is number 1 on this list.
I'm still surprised that the current queen isn't on this list, though.
I was surprised about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was expecting Elizabeth II.
I believe so.
Nobody
ever calls her by her name. She's just the queen. Everyone knows who the queen is.
Yeah, if anyone says the queen, we all know who you're talking about. This guy. Question for you. Who would you include on this list? Which name would you remove? Myself, I would swap out John Lennon for William Wilberforce, because while John Lennon was famous and did sing a lot about peace and freedom, William Wilberforce was a character who actually inspired and caused greater peace and freedom within the UK.
If you enjoyed this video and want to get fresh British culture content in your life 3 times a week, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We're trying to hit 50,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of the year, and every subscription helps, so please and thank you.
Again, I'm Eric.
And I'm Grace.
We're the Wandering Ravens.
And we will see you guys next time.
Bisous!